right, everyone. Welcome to episode 11 of our Healing Voices podcast and YouTube channel. I'm really excited to be here today. Really excited for my interview with Caleb Wilson. And first off, if this is your first time joining the podcast or checking out the channel on YouTube, our Healing Voices, the idea, the goal for me is sometimes it can feel a little lonely on this earth, even though there's billions of us. Sometimes it can feel a little lonely. And especially what I found on my body, mind, spirit healing journey. Sometimes I feel like, am I the only one reading this book? Am I the only one exploring this or talking about this with friends? And what I'm continuing to find out is I'm not the only one. And there's a lot of people that are doing the work to heal, and in their own unique ways. Obviously, we're not all on the exact same path, and that is one of the main reasons I launched this podcast is because I really am just so fascinated and amazed at humans and people's resilience, and also people's ideas and the way in which they're living their lives. And I just wanted to provide a space where people could share their stories, share about their transformation, how they've become who they are. Because I feel like when I, hear these stories, I realize that we're family. And, and that's one of my biggest goals of this podcast is just for us to begin to be more intentional about looking at one another as family, and realizing that we can learn from each other, and realizing that we can cheer each other on. So all that to say, I am super excited today to have Caleb Wilson join me live. And this is so exciting to me because Caleb and I, the last time, one of the last times we hung out in person was back in 2010. And it was high school graduation for Caleb. And we met each other through Raymond S. Kellis High School in Arizona, where I was teaching high school math and leadership and also student council advisor. And Caleb was in student council. And what I recall about you was just a consistency and a kindness. It was like consistency and kindness. You just were faithful and there and present and helping, and also just like an energy of kindness. There, like, you had a different sort of maturity is what I remember. Like, and not to say you weren't having fun, you weren't still a high schooler, but I just remember you having a different sort of maturity when it came to being 18. So I've really also been thankful here the last, 2 or 3 years, we've been kind of, hitting each other back and forth on Facebook, just checking in on each other. And I've just really appreciated that and growing our friendship and just, honestly cheering each other on. Like, I wanted, like, your words when when you're cheering me, like when I get a video from you and you're cheering on whatever I've got going on in my life, it means a lot. And I just really appreciate your intentionality and connecting with me. And I'm really excited for myself. I'm excited to get to know you on a deeper level today and learn more about your path up till now. And I'm also excited for people who are listening or watching us on YouTube to just like get to know Caleb Wilson, because I'm grateful to know you and excited for other people to get to know you. So all that to say, I'm curious, as you look back on this last, you said you're getting ready to be 29 come September. As you look back on this, this handful of years that you've lived, what are two or three experiences that have been super impactful on who you are today and the way in which you're viewing the world today? If you can, I know there's so many experiences we all have, in life, but like, are there, two or three that jump out at you as like, when this happened, light bulbs went on, or this, this experience or this friendship or relationship? Anyway, I'll pass the mic to you.
Yeah, first off, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It means a lot to me. And thank you for showering me with all these compliments and praise. It brings back good memories, to kind of reflect on myself from another person's perspective and kind of hear some of those traits that I try to focus so much on, which is, consistency, kindness. Those are things I still try to maintain and practice today. So it's good to hear, there is a start to that, and that you're able to witness those things. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in the last few years, almost the last decade, I would say a few pivotal experiences would be one, just diving into, I guess, like more self-help development type of material, whether it be through videos on YouTube or books. There was one man in particular, his name was Miles Monroe,
Mm-hmm.
and I listened to his series on YouTube, and he was talking about like purpose and passion about life and vision and potential, your gifts, having character, and just listening to these messages. I would listen to them days at a time, weeks, months, and the messages just kind of sunk in to where those seeds started to grow and manifest. Eventually, I took that a step further and got a few of his books, and he had this one book that was it was In Charge. So it was a book on leadership. And after reading that book, it really changed my mind about like a leadership philosophy and my life philosophy, and just give me more of a focus. I would say the 18-year-old Caleb, he was doing good things, but maybe he wasn't doing the right thing. And once I got towards, understanding like what else was to do in life, that focus became crystal clear, and you start living with more purpose and intentionality. So I would say that's what been one of the biggest changes over the last few years, finding out what I'm supposed to do in life and then living those things.
Hmm. So this guy, I got to check this guy out. Miles Monroe, you said?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so just kind of lit you on fire with purpose, and just how do I want to live more intentionally? First off, I mean, I think sometimes I'm also just amazed. I'm just amazed, as you're even talking about, over the last, 5-10 years, like diving into self-help stuff. I mean, okay, maybe it's happening, but for some reason, I can get online or watch the news, and I'm like, are people reading these? Are people like taking a look at purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Or are people just playing video games? And I can have a little bit of and not to say I wasn't playing video games in my 20s, and I still don't like to do it occasionally, but wow. So Miles Monroe shifted things. Yeah. So say more about that. Like, how has that influenced just like your own decision making with regard to post? You went to ASU, post life at ASU. Now you're down in Tucson. You just finished an internship. Nutrition, dietitian, right? Tell us a little bit about what you're up to right now.
Yeah.
And how you got there, like where that
Yeah.
nutrition and wellness became important.
Okay, definitely. So, like I said, 18-year-old Caleb, I remember sitting in the auditorium at Kellis, and they brought in some speakers to talk to all the seniors, and just talking about careers and what to do post high school. And then that's when the bulb just clicked, and I was thinking, like, crap, I'm going to graduate high school. Like, I got to kind of do something with my life. And, my parents, especially my dad, he said, after high school, you're either going to work full time, you're going to go to the military, or you're going to go to college. You're going to do something. But there wasn't, sitting at home playing video games wasn't going to fly by with my parents, especially. So I decided to work and go to school. So I was working at a golf course, up the street from my house, and then also went to community college, Glendale.
Mm-hmm.
And then somewhere along the way, got another job. So I was working two jobs. I worked, maybe close to 50 or 60 hours a week on top of going to school full time and maintaining like other obligations like going to church and,
Yeah.
the musician at the church and also participating in the youth group. So I was a pretty busy young man, but I didn't really I was doing good things, like I said, but I wasn't like doing what was right for me. So eventually, once I started planning and putting goals and writing down, like, this is what I want to accomplish in the next year, this is what I want to accomplish in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, next 25 years. And that's all from listening to, Miles Monroe and just kind of getting that definition for vision for my life. So once I was able to go through those exercises and really sit down with myself and figure out, what I'm supposed to be doing in life, especially when it comes to like what God purposed me with. So once I was able to sit down and write those things out, I started putting actions towards those things. At first, I started off doing pharmacy as my major. I thought, heck, I can make a lot of money, and I can take care of myself. It kind of checks all those boxes, but it wasn't really meant for me. And so, had a little bit of a realization moment, and took that change to cross over to nutrition. And I thought that was a much more practical way of helping people, because I did want to help people, but I felt like nutrition, everyone can relate to it. Everyone eats. And so going to school and doing that training for nutrition just seemed the right thing to do. Ended up going to ASU, and that was an interesting experience too, just because when I transferred over, I didn't really get a whole lot of support or encouragement. It was kind of like, treating me like a number, and, you may not get into the internship. It's really competitive. So not a whole lot of positive things, but, I just let it roll off the skin, and I didn't let that bother me too much. But, throughout college, worked at UPS as a supervisor. Don't know how I ended up getting that gig, because I had no prior management experience before, but it just, it ended up working out. And I think those that I worked with, I was able to gain so much from their experiences. I worked with people that were younger than me, people that are old enough to be my grandparents, and I'm also supervising them as well. But, I didn't let that position or title like get to my head. Although I was always able to, just talk person to person on that level and still get everything done. And that's working in a union environment. So that was also another interesting experience, being a supervisor and having that union management relationship. So a lot of learning experiences all together, where I'm trying to like rope everything in as I'm heading towards what I see for myself, maybe 5, years down the line. So I remember, 2014, 2015, I'm writing down like, I want to become a registered dietitian. I want to make sure, I'm helping people to become the best version of themselves. And so I figured nutrition was like one avenue of helping people. The other avenues would be helping people with either in like finances or in relationships, and just kind of like counseling. And I didn't have that in my mind at the time, but that's what I was working towards. It wasn't until, maybe 2 or 3 years ago that I realized, okay, counseling is another element that I want to add to that. So ended up applying or graduating and applying for a job out in Marana. And I had no idea it was in Marana at the time. And I'm thinking I'm applying for a job, and it's like somewhere in the metro area in Phoenix. And then one day the director calls me, and she's excited to interview me. And she's like, this job's in Tucson, right? And I'm in IKEA with my fiance, and we're shopping for, things for her place and in Phoenix. And I'm like, it's in Tucson. I gotta take, you gotta think about that. It's in Tucson. But at the time, I had filled out like maybe hundreds and hundreds of applications, and really got like a handful of interviews. So this was the first one that was truly interested in me. So I figured, if they're interested in me, I might as well see what this job is all about. One thing led to another. I had the internship. After I worked there for a year, and I got into the internship my first try. The program was awesome. I learned so so many techniques and different things about nutrition, especially within a community setting. And it's been just an awesome learning ride. Like I've definitely learned a lot. I've been having my humbling experiences, which have definitely, I think those are the things I appreciate most, is just having like those humbling experiences that kind of just bring me down to earth and make me realize that I still have more areas to grow. And so over the last 10 years, I've definitely been embracing like a growth mindset where I become comfortable with the idea of not being comfortable, because I feel like that's what really sparks the growth. Staying inside that little comfort zone, maybe at home with my parents, and everything was just like, okay, like this is nice, not too bad. But coming out here to Tucson on my own with my fiance and just having to grow up and do things that I wasn't accustomed to doing, I feel like those kind of experiences definitely propelled my growth, and definitely thankful for all that. So I'm not sure if that answered your question. I may have forgot.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. No, I was definitely curious, like, to know more about how, like, nutrition and yeah, I mean, so for you, is you had thought pharmacy, and then as you kind of sorted through that, you were like, okay, nutrition excites me, like helping people kind of one-on-one. And then
Mhm.
as you've gotten into this internship, it gave you a lot of different experiences, like working within a community, new strategies with regard to like nutrition, and yeah. And then also you were just talking about how like just writing down those goals were like super huge. Um, you said comfort zone, like that moving to Marana might have been the best, it was what God intended. Like it was like that for that next level of growth that you knew was necessary or something, right? It was like,
Yeah.
um, yeah. Anyway, so tell me about nutrition. Man, this is the journey, right? You've had more schooling and more education on nutrition than 99% of doctors, right?
Well,
This
yeah.
is what I've
So
heard. And I'm not throwing doctors in. I've got big respect. I've got a lot of friends that are doctors, so I'm not. But more that nutrition is not really much of a focus in medical school, is what I've heard. It's like requirements. Maybe you're going up a little bit, but it's like 12 to 24 hours worth of nutrition. So obviously, like for me, from my background and from where I'm at and kind of how I view health, I'm like, I want you as my doctor. You know what I mean? Like that, I'd be coming to you as my doctor, if I have any health stuff go on, and be like, all right, Caleb, help me put together a plan, because I got such and such going on in my kidney. Can you help me figure out how to, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
yeah, so again, big love to doctors, those of you who are listening. But I also just like this nutrition piece. What are some of the pieces that, if a listener was on here and they had never really put together a plan, had never really thought of like nutrition being a key factor in their wellness story, what would you suggest somebody, whether it's a book to check out, or if it's specific thing, just a few specific tips that you might throw out to someone who's like, in beginner status, or, and just needing
Mhm.
some guidance in the nutrition land? What would you, and obviously we're all unique, but I'm curious what you might add or offer to someone.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely agree. I mean, I appreciate all the doctors out there that may be listening and tune in.
Yeah.
I can't, perform surgery on myself, or if I go in
Okay.
and,
Touche.
my first year working at UPS here in Tucson, I actually like broke my finger. And so nutrition, it can help heal to a certain extent, but who's going to sew it up, and who's going to put in the painkillers to, kind of numb the site? Like I can't do that. So
Oh,
everyone has their role. And I guess emphasizing that everyone has their role to play. So there's like an interdisciplinary approach to health. And so doctors play their role, nutritionists, we play our role. And so you also have to know your scope of practice and where those borders are.
Hmm.
So I know over the last, few years, that nutrition piece definitely becoming more important, especially within medicine, because they're seeing how much of an impact it does have on health, and that's not just like in the hospital, but also in preventative as well. So, if a new, I guess, someone that's inspired to get their nutrition on track, I kind of feel like there's so much information out there. You almost get bombarded. Like there's so much you don't know what's the right way. But the most important thing is sticking with something that's not too restricting. And I usually just give out general advice. So if anyone wants to have more of an in-depth conversation, they're more than welcome to reach out to me. I
Yeah.
feel like that's more my speed versus kind of sitting here at the mic in front of my face saying this is the way to nutrition and health. That's definitely not my not my cup of tea. But
Yeah.
I would definitely say, avoid being like too restrictive. Try to get a lot of variety, and most importantly, be consistent with what you do. Um, so those are kind of like my philosophies that I live by, and I try not to, if I want to have something sweet or something that maybe is quote unquote a bad food to others or to a certain population of people, I will enjoy them, but I'll do it in moderation. I'll do it in practice balance. I go and just fill up a whole bowl with ice cream. I'll maybe just put like a couple scoops, something to enjoy, and I try to focus on actually enjoying the food versus just scarfing it down and eating it and getting it down to my stomach as fast as possible. I feel like if you're enjoying the foods you're eating and you're having a good relationship with food, that's what's going to help lead down that path overall. Um, so those are kind of, I usually go towards philosophies versus like, this is exactly what you want to do, because everyone's different.
Yeah.
What may work for me may not work for the next person. And, you have your own family history and your own environment and other things to consider. So when it comes to nutrition, it's very individualized.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that. And it's cool. Yeah. So again, those of you listening, definitely feel free to reach out to Caleb on Facebook, Instagram, and we'll make sure you have his info accessible. Yeah, because you do prefer just that one-on-one kind of helping somebody find a game plan and figure out
Mm-hmm.
next steps based on who they are and where they're at on their journey. But
Yeah.
I do love those general tips, and just like having that healthy relationship with food, enjoying, like, right. I mean, you said moderation, how instead of scarfing, how are we like enjoying food, um, not to be too restrictive. Um, Also another piece, and consistency, right? It's like just, and when you say that, are you referring to like times when you're eating, or are you more referring, because I'm thinking about,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. When you're saying consistency, is it more about times of the day you're eating, or is it more about um, consistency of what you're eating, or just finding like, or both and probably?
Yeah. It's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I feel, I've talked to, some people may ask me questions about like maybe helping them come up with a plan. And so definitely do that. And I like kind of sitting down and doing that with individuals. So when I talk about consistency, I mean like the plan that you have. So if you're eating like if you're doing like a calorie counting sort of thing, like definitely be consistent with that. Like if your goal is like weight loss, you want to do it consistently, especially for a long period of time before, saying that it doesn't work, or maybe trying something different and, just like replanning and reorganizing what you're doing. If
Hmm.
you only do something for like a day or two, you're not going to really see the benefits of it. And when it comes to like long-term success, it takes, I think we're looking at a span of 5 to 7 years of keeping that weight off to show that it was successful. So if we're looking at that amount of time to show that a plan or your routine was successful, if you're switching your diet every month or so, you're not really giving yourself enough time to, put in that groundwork and allow your body to adjust to it. There's still a lot of things that we're learning about everyone's metabolism and, you know, putting different things in and out and just kind of changing it every so often. Your body has to adjust to that. So when we're talking about consistency, we're talking about an overall, like whatever your meal plan looks like, maybe the times as well. Just being consistent with that. So it does take discipline, and that's probably not the most exciting thing people like to hear when it comes to health and, you know, that path, but it does take consistency and discipline. But it's all about that journey and that process. And that's one of the things I love doing with my job is addressing those barriers to people's goals and seeing how we can work past those barriers. To me, that's more important than the nutrition piece itself, because I feel like, again, there's so much information out there.
Mm-hmm.
You can just take a plan and, you know, do it, and you may, you know, see some results. But what everyone doesn't have access to or may not have help with is, you know, getting past those barriers and getting past those challenges. And that's why I really like the counseling part of what I do, because I can sit down, help someone, just like guide them through. I'm not giving them the answers, but more empowering and encouraging them to work through those barriers to get to that path of health for themselves and wellness.
So good. So good. Yeah. So the counseling piece, you really get to practice that when you're working one-on-one with clients.
Yeah.
And that's so beautiful. And you are such a natural at asking questions and then listening and feedback and everything. Like that's a natural thing for you. So I'm sure your clients love that. As far as, yeah, I mean, even as you're saying that, it's like, as you dive in, like the nutritional, what are our blocks? I mean, I'm thinking about America, right? Where it's the health story of America is a challenged one, just in general. I mean, I think I recently saw some research that 6 out of 10 Americans have one or more chronic diseases. And, you know, a lot of my brain is like, goes into lifestyle. Do you have any thoughts just on what are some of the blocks? Like, what are we just so pleasure centered that, you know, as a nation or something, you know, like where we just, the discipline, you said like discipline is a tough one for us, you know?
Yeah.
Is that one of the blockers? As you kind of have studied it and worked with people, like, what do you feel like are some things that are blocking us? What are those blocks? Yeah. Anyway, and
Yeah.
you can just rattle off whatever comes to you. But I'm always curious, and I have my ideas, but I'm curious to know what your ideas are.
Yeah, I would definitely. That's definitely part of the blocks. There's so many. I can just go to my own personal experience. I don't even have to go to
Yeah.
anyone else's. You know, we have our environment that we have today, where we're mostly sedentary.
Yeah.
You know, we're sitting most of the day. I know I am, especially since of this whole COVID and we're working from home. You know, I've been parked behind a desk for, you know, hours at a time, and I barely kind of get up and move. I do try to get out and run, but it's the fact that our environment kind of has us parked behind a screen for the better part of the day. And we're also kind of having a surplus of options of foods that are really calorie dense. So that doesn't help. So if you think of it as an equation of your like input versus output, like the input, you have sedentary activities, you have surplus of caloric options that are really caloric dense, the poor nutrition quality of foods. You also have, maybe there's like family factors, family history.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot. Maybe you don't have the time to get out and exercise. Maybe you're, you know, you don't have like a walk path or running path in the neighborhood, or you just don't have the time. Sometimes time is a big factor too. Some of us are working so much, and especially here in America, we're such like a work-driven society, and we focus on ourselves. But when it comes to health, I feel like health definitely takes a back seat. So when it comes to like the things that are first place, it's like career and, you know, other things. But health definitely doesn't, you know, get that attention that it needs. It's kind of like you really have to carve time and make time for it. So I think those are the blocks that we were definitely dealing with. And I know that they're real because I experienced them too.
Yeah.
We have, like you said, the pleasure center. We have so many options for entertainment, and usually the entertainment requires, you're sitting down, you're just glued in front of the screen. There's so many shows and, games and different entertainment out there. So you really have to find the willpower to turn off that switch and just kind of block those distractions. I'll call them distractions because if the goal is health, you kind of have to turn the volume down on those other distractions or mute it in order to get towards that path. So there are a lot of different ways to get down that path. It's just up to that individual what they want that path to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, definitely try to sit down and look at like what I'm doing, because even though I went to school for nutrition doesn't mean like I'm eating perfectly, but I'm working to practice what I preach. And so if I'm encouraging, my patients or clients to do, 60 minutes of activity, I'm working to see how I can do that for myself and maybe more. That way I can really understand what my audience is going through and be able to relate and, help them get through those barriers. Maybe it's time. So I feel like just getting in there and doing it for myself, and getting myself to that point, I can kind of help lead others to that. And so that's also been a part of my career journey and just personal journey as well, like getting myself to that mountaintop first and then helping others reach that goal as well. So that's been another kind of like philosophy for myself.
I love that. I love that. And it makes it so much more believable, eh? Like where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, hey, I want to listen to you tell me, guide me on this, right? I think that when you're practicing what you're preaching, you know, it's a beautiful thing and not
Yeah.
easy. Will we ever be 100% consistent? Like we're all, we're still on the human journey. Yeah. So as a nutritionist, what is your favorite splurge item? I know you said ice cream, but what's something that you do consume like on a moderate basis, like, and so that would be one thing. Yeah. What's your favorite splurge item? And then
Yeah.
if there are 2 or 3 foods out there that people probably need to just say adios to, like if you were to just be like, yeah, that's probably not going to do it for you. I know you talked about caloric dense. The easy options are so calorically loaded. So, we're like, oh, that Chipotle was awesome and I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't need to eat lunch or I don't need to eat the next meal or, depending upon
Yeah.
how much we eat. So yeah, what are you splurging on, Mr. Nutritionist? And also like what are 2 or 3 items that you would just say, hey, if you can skip these or only consume them moderately, that would be helpful. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think of a splurge item, and for the last 2 or 3 years, I have been working towards cleaning it up. I mean, I still may enjoy. I do have a sweet tooth, so I like to enjoy like different like cakes or brownies or what have you.
mm-hmm.
But I feel like that's not like a super. It's like I try to limit it, and especially since I study nutrition, I kind of play around with my macros. It's
Okay.
like if I'm gonna have an option to have like rice before my starch, or there's like a brownie I can have afterwards, I'm definitely gonna bypass the rice and fit in the brownie, because like if I'm gonna have a starch, I might as well like get the one I want, but still be underneath my calories for the day. So I kind of cheat the system in a way,
Uh-huh.
but I try to do it within moderation, like I said. But I think over the last 10 years, I probably could have been sponsored by Pop Tart.
That is
And
amazing.
knowing that anyone who knows me, they know that like Pop Tarts were my go-to snack. But I actually haven't had a Pop Tart in maybe, like I said, 2 or 3 years. And I used to always have them, especially at college. You just go to the vending machine. They're usually lower price, and yeah, I would enjoy those. But
I'm gonna need
for
your mailing address after this so I can ship you some Pop Tarts. This has been 2 or 3 years. If you want me to.
been doing so good.
Okay, I will. Skip it.
um, but as far as like things that people should avoid, I would say avoiding low nutrition quality foods, and so those would be your, I guess, like your fast food places, and any process that like removes the nutrients from the food. So those would be the two things. Maybe people can start to have less and less and move towards higher nutrition quality food.
Awesome. Yeah. Huge. Huge. Like looking at, yeah, Sarah always says, all right, we're going to the produce aisle first. We need to go to the produce aisle first because it's so easy. It's back in the back, right? So then you hit all these like processed food aisles or, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a journey to get back there to the back without having your cart half full. It's like, how did this
Yeah.
just happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, I appreciate you dropping in on that, and yeah, I'm just proud of you for supporting people on their journeys, and I totally hear you on that. It's such a unique path for all of us, and we all have unique goals, right? Different wellness goals that we have for ourselves. Yeah, but I just appreciate the work you're doing, and excited to see how you continue to support people, and maybe even some people that listen to this will be ready to hire you as a private consultant, help them out a little bit on their wellness journey, because I think I think for me it's part of this podcast. The reason I launched this is like sometimes we need an accountability partner. Sometimes we need somebody just like cheering us on. Um,
Yeah.
or I know I've needed that. I know that Sarah, my wife, being in my life has really helped me get rid of a lot of the processed stuff that I used to throw down quite regularly. So I just, that accountability has been huge. So just appreciate that you're offering that to people in your day-to-day work. And again, right, it's like it's the education that,
Mm-hmm.
as I listen to you talk, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want Caleb to lead a group of other nutritionists into schools, nationwide, and we need some chefs to go in with them. So we're gonna have the nutritionists, we're gonna have the chefs, and we're gonna have the gardeners, and we're gonna literally
Mm-hmm.
like give kids from ages 5 to 18 gardening,
Mm-hmm.
culinary, nutrition, like
Yeah.
that feels like such a, it seems like it would be a smart, exciting, exciting journey for our country. And just for like, it's like, just health is, I think we sometimes forget how important it is, um,
Yeah.
anyway.
No, I definitely agree with that. The priority, in education, definitely when it comes to what we should be learning that's helpful for adulthood and beyond. Like we aren't really learning that in school. Like the finances, taking care of our bodies, some of those things that you just deal with on a day to day, those are not really focused on. One thing I'm really excited about here in Tucson is that they do have like school gardening programs. They're getting their youth out there, exposing them to all kinds of interesting produce that they may not normally be exposed to at home.
Hmm.
They're learning about it, and so I was able to kind of take part in that during my internship, and it was just super cool. The kids get really excited. First they're kind of like, "What's this?" They're really hesitant. Then you kind of play some games, or you just kind of educate them on different things, and then next thing you know, like they're accepting those foods. So you're changing that child's life, and you're also impacting their future because you're not gonna think that food comes from a box or from a can, or it comes from like fast food. They know that it comes from, the earth, and you can actually grow your own foods, cook your own food. And just doing that alone, you're already on the path to health just by incorporating those things and doing them. So super, super big. So I kind of grew up like that too. My dad
Yeah.
and my mom, they have a pretty big garden. And so they're doing their own gardening thing too. And that's been super cool to see from where they started and like where it is now. And at first I wasn't thinking like, okay, maybe, I'll just buy the healthy food at the store, but then you learn a little bit more about like food and sustaining things on your own. Like, okay, maybe this gardening thing, like that's definitely the route to go. So it's definitely opening my mind. Wasn't always like full on board with these things, but the more you learn, it just kind of opens your eyes to different things.
Totally. So your parents had a garden growing up.
Yeah, they had variations of gardens growing up. I would say the garden they have now is definitely like the biggest and the best in my opinion. But growing up, they're always growing something,
Yeah,
even if it was just like a little bit here and there.
that's great. That's so good. Yeah, I think that's yeah, I definitely think that that's a part of this awakening. I think that's a part. Like if I want to believe that we're in an awakening right now, and that we're all kind of like waking up to responsibility for our health, and waking up for responsibility for our communities, and waking up to our responsibility for the earth. And it's like I feel like that what you're seeing in Tucson, and I know it's happening in other communities around the country. And I just I just pray that that continues to expand and grow because. Yeah, I mean, we're spending a lot of money on sickness, on trying to
Yeah.
get well again. And it's like if we could switch that up, where people are able to pour their extra money into dreams they have, or
hmm
a vacation or something, it's like could be really beautiful. So, well, let's yeah, thanks for diving into nutrition and everything. What is as we continue on, your self-healing, okay? I mean, we're all kind of, I like to believe we're all on kind of this healing journey, evolutionary journey, where we're kind of like, you talked about it at 18, kindness and
Yeah.
consistency were a couple important things, but as you've continued on, like it's expanded and become even more, as I think back to who I was in high school, and I'm like, you know, on paper, like everybody thought I was this confident kid, but inside I was like super insecure, struggling every day to like think I was attractive enough. I had all, just different insecurities that plagued me. And then that healing journey of the last 20 years for me, and your 10 years, like, yeah, you were a 2010 grad. I'm a 2000 grad. So we've got, I've been, so yeah, what have been some, whether it's physically, mentally, spiritually, just your evolution, what are some pieces? What are you coming to right now? What are you working through right now? Um, if there's been like pivotal spiritual awakenings in your life up till now, or maybe how you were raised compared to where you're at now, like what tell us a little bit about that journey. I know we've talked a little bit about it, and I'm just intrigued and fascinated by your expand, like by the way you're learning and expanding. And anyway, so
Yeah.
whatever you want to touch on, body, mind, spirit. I'd love to hear, just kind of, so others listening can also just kind of find their own voice of like, all right, and take pieces of, yeah, how have you found this? I mean, obviously the
Mm.
YouTube, following the guy, you said Miles Monroe,
Yeah.
but tell us about your body, mind, spirit journey. And at almost 29 years old, what have you learned? Where are you at? What are you excited about? What are you healing? Anyway.
Yeah. So what I get really excited about, especially being on the path I'm on now, is knowing my purpose and knowing what I'm supposed to do in life. Maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I didn't have that pinpointed, clear vision of what I wanted for myself, and it did cause me to go in a little bit of like I guess like a little bit of a funk or depression, kind of on the little bit on the downside.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggled with it because I didn't feel like I was really going anywhere. I was doing things that were good, but it wasn't like the right thing. And so that was a theme or something that kind of just like ate at me. And so once I really, those seeds that were planted just started to, to grow a little bit more myself, and those messages started to, come more to the forefront of my mind. I went through a couple of exercises where, I thought about what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do in life, the type of impact I wanted to make. One of the one one of the exercises that really got me was how I want to be remembered. So it was an exercise, basically, like a eulogy type. Like if someone's like, going over your obituary or some type of bio about you, like what are they going to remember about you? And so that really hit a chord with me, and it caused me to really sit down and um, really just tackle those things. I hadn't really thought about those things before through prayer, through meditation, and just like seeking God and what I'm supposed to be doing. I was able to get those answers, and so um, yeah, just knowing what I'm supposed to do. Like my purpose is to encourage others and empower others, and to encourage them to be the best version of themselves that they can be. And it's to others it may seem simple, but to me that really gets my fire going. Like I can talk to anyone I run into, and I can just have a conversation and just listen to them, and then just get excited about like what they're moving towards. And that's that's something that every day, like it never passes my mind or doesn't come across. Like how can I myself be a better person, and how can I encourage others to be the best that they can be. So I believe since realizing those things about myself, I've been able to live accordingly. So each day I'm putting in different work and different experiences and actions that I believe go towards that, whether it's for myself and bettering myself, or just being that cheerleader, or being that coach or the guide, or just like a reflective wall for someone to kind of hear their own ideas and then give them that encouragement to go forward in their own walk and path. And so that was something that's definitely been a big change. And so I have that confidence, whereas before maybe I tried to fit in and do other things, but now definitely have that confidence in what I'm doing in life. And from that point forward, I was writing down goals and what I wanted to do. And it's kind of crazy. I go back and I check these notebooks. I have like a stack of notebooks like this.
Uh-huh.
And I have just things I write in there to myself, make notes to myself and things I want to do. And I may check on them every 6, 12, 18 months. And, I go back and I look, I'm like, dang, like I did this, I did this, I did this. I'm working towards that. And it's encouraging to myself. And sometimes I write myself like messages, and I'll go back, and it's super encouraging to see that the Caleb like 3 years ago was like had this fire and passion about what we're working towards. And reading something like that today, it's like, man, like that just ignites my own fire and gets me going even more. And that's why I'm encouraged by interacting with people like you and getting that fire feeds fire. When you told me about this podcast, I was like, yes, that's awesome. And I was super excited about it because it's you working towards like bringing out your own gifts and your own talents. And I feel the process to making, it's cliche, but making the world a better place is by each person being the best version of themselves. And you and everyone listening, we each have like those unique gifts and talents and skills and purpose that all work towards healing the earth and healing ourselves. So once everyone kind of like, I think you said, like wakes up to that fact and realizes that we can definitely heal, experience a rapid growth of healing ourselves and healing the earth and our surroundings. It wasn't always like that for me. And I feel like the more knowledge, it's just like, man, like I got to go out and try to apply this. And, it's just, you always learn something new.
So good. So good. Yeah, I mean, to me, I love that. I mean, so encourage and empower. I mean, I said that as I was introducing you. It's like you do that, man. You do that very well, and I feel that and that support. And it's like, yeah, dude, yeah, go do it, go do it. Like I feel like you offer that in our friendship. It's like, yeah, I know that I'm going to get a positive word from you of encouragement. And so, yeah, I'm just proud of you for getting clear on that. When you were in that dark space, or the funk, the little mini depression, like what were there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, was there a pivotal moment that kind of released that, or was it just you doing the work of journaling and like kind of working through, all right, where do I want to be 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 25 years from now? Like, was it some of the exercises that you got, or was it, do you remember any sort of like, I mean, obviously healing is so, right. As I'm saying that, I'm like flashing back to my life in Jerusalem back in
Mm.
2006, and I'm crying at a church service or whatever, and I'm like, it's all part of my healing. I'm like, I don't remember exactly what I was going through, but I was just feeling love in that moment,
Mm.
feeling called, and it's like,
Mm.
um, yeah, in those tougher times, I know. Yeah. Was there a friend, or was there something that you felt kind of led you up out of the lower time?
Yeah. So I remember this being, broken down, just getting down to that place where I wasn't so inspired and wasn't so encouraged or empowered, and just felt, like each day kind of was really blah. Like it didn't really have any like meaning in it, because I didn't feel like I knew what I wanted. I am a man of faith. I do believe in the Most High, and through reading the Bible and just seeing the different, the characters and people in the Bible, and how they were able to get through their own tough times. You had there's a whole gang of characters that they had some tough moments, and after reading and seeing what they went through, I was like, well, my problems aren't really that bad compared to theirs. Like, you had Joseph, he's in prison. You had Abraham, he's trying to have his first child and he can't. Has to wait 25 years. And you have Job, his whole family's taken away from him. So you read these accounts and you're like, well, what I'm going through really doesn't seem that bad. And I remember one thing that I said to myself that helped bring me out is, I am not where I'll end up. And I just kept saying that to myself. And eventually, I just kind of gave me that power and that faith to keep on. Even though I didn't really know where I was going, it just gave me the faith that eventually I'm going to get there. Like, it may not, I may not see it right now, but you just got to keep taking those steps of faith. And once the vision came through, even though it wasn't clear, the vision came through. And I feel like God, being a father, he wants to guide us and coach us and grow us. He doesn't want to just give us the answer. He wants to really see that growth and that maturity in all of his children. And I think that's what a father does. He wants to see that growth. He wants you to be the best. And it's up to us to just have that faith to take each step. That was made clear to me after the fact. I went hiking here in Tucson, and I got lost between two trailheads. And I was like, where's this darn trailhead I'm looking for? I'm going to get lost out here. I was over here in Bear Canyon, and I was crossing this riverbed. So I was like, there's no pathway. Like, there's no way to get across. Like, I tried to go this way, couldn't do it. Tried to go that way, couldn't do it. So I went back to the trailhead from before, and I just like took my time and just took one step after another. And what seemed to be like a chaotic like path, it eventually, as I took each step, it just like unfolded like this clear, defined path. And I got to the trailhead. And after just like reflecting on that, it just, I feel like God was telling me that, you have the vision in mind where you're wanting to go. There's a destination. You want to get to Seven Falls. But the way to get there, whatever destination you're going through, it may not be totally clear, but it's up to you to have that faith to keep taking each step, to keep moving forward, no matter what it looks like. And so when it comes to faith, you can't use your natural eyes to always, use that to see where you're going. You have to use your heart. You have to have that faith and not just like face that, okay, it's going to happen, but just even if it doesn't happen right away, just like believing in God no matter what, even if it doesn't happen. And so those kind of moments and those type of reflections definitely, I know I keep that in my back pocket, in my shirt pocket, and I always kind of hold that dearly because, you know, in this journey that we go through, there's moments where it's not going to be, you know, you're at your high moment. You're gonna go through some tough things, and that's one thing I've come to just be okay with that. Especially, you know, growing up, maybe there's messages about like, well, good things are always going to happen to good people. That's not always the case. You know, I had my bubble burst, you know, with some life events, and you realize that sometimes negative things happen to good people too, or just people in general. It's up to you to, you know, pick yourself up and keep going. So it was those kind of reflections, those kind of moments, those kind of, you know, truths that spoke to me and helped me get to where I am today.
Hmm. So good, man. That's, yeah. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. And just so I hear you saying you know, just the biblical characters, like being a big, like seeing what they've been through and kind of just being like, whoa, okay. A little bit of a perspective shift on, okay, what,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what can I handle? What can I, Caleb, handle? You know, and how can I grow in this? How can I grow out of this? The quote you said, mm, beautiful. It's, you know, I am not where I will end up. That's what you said, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that gave me like, that lit me up over here because I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes it can feel, oh, you know, I mean, the work takes time, right? I mean, you know, and it's like, come on, man, I can get on internet in 2 seconds right now. Like, why does it got to take time? Like, why is the Wi-Fi slow or whatever? You know, we can
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
these really impatient energies, and it's like, I'm not where I'll end up. Like, I know if I stay faithful, I know if I stay
Mm-hmm.
faithful to this growth and to these, you know, these good choices daily and reflections. I mean, it sounds like you just continue to really listen to God and like, okay, here we go. Like, you know, these are, you know, where I know these are my purpose, you know, I want to empower and
Mm-hmm.
encourage. Now let's go. And, you know, you're going to keep growing yourself. And anyway, just really appreciate you sharing. Yeah. Hmm. That just helped me. I know that'll hopefully help somebody listening or watching this. So let's, yeah, let's talk about you currently. Um, you know, what are a few priorities? You know, obviously, you said you've just recently finished the internship,
Yes.
and now you're shifting into a role for the next 2 or 3 years, I think, right?
Yeah.
Like a new role that'll be kind of your full-time gig, and yeah, what are some of your priorities? I know you're engaged, and yeah, anyway, so like what are the main priorities in your life right now, and kind of as you map out your days? Obviously, you're off supporting people on their nutrition journey and helping in that front. What are some of your other passions and priorities right now?
Yeah. So, you know, gearing up to study for the exam. So we were talking about that earlier where, you know, in a few months, we'll be taking the exam, and then I'll get my credentials. I'll be a registered dietitian officially. And I'm excited because I'll be working in a new county that's, you know, Cochise County. And, you know, I'm just super thankful because, like, you would think that your past experiences, that even though, or for me, my past experiences, even though I wasn't on track, I maybe didn't see like a clear path for myself, and I thought my experiences at that time would be for nothing. You know, just to look at God and how He's able to make everything come full circle. You know, my past experiences were able to help me get into the role today, where, you know, I can be not only the dietitian but also, you know, be the manager as well. And so I just look at God as making use of everything that I've been through to, allow me to step into a new role. So super thankful about that. My fiance has been super supportive, and I also tip my hat off to my fiance. I proposed to her, what was it, last October. It was on the 26th. We had been dating for 6 years. We just celebrated 7 years of companionship, or friendship, as the older generation might say. And so, yeah, I'm super proud of her. She just finished law school. She's getting ready for the bar, and we're also trying to get a wedding, planned. We didn't want to do it while we're in school. We're in our program, so we're finally at the point to where we're ready to tackle, these other to-do list items. But we're excited. It can be stressful at times, but we both have each other, so that's what matters most, and we're able to, keep each other, in good spirits throughout this process. So, I'm just happy all over to overall together. As far as the things that I'm doing currently, besides like work and personal stuff, like I said, spiritually, just trying to get closer to God. I've experienced a bit of a spiritual awakening, and that's been super huge too. So I'm not sure if you want to dive into that, but that's also been another aspect where my foundation was, things that I once thought have been changed, but for the good. So again, those are kind of my current priorities.
Mm-hmm. So good. So good. What are two of your favorite things about your fiance? What are
She
two
has,
things? What are two things, what drew you to her? What gets you so excited about hanging out with her
well,
forever?
yeah, I mean, she's very goal driven, and she's always been that way since I met her. For me, I wasn't as goal driven at the time, but when I thought about pursuing her seriously, I was like, well, I got to get myself together too.
Mm-hmm.
So, or to get my act together. But ever since I met her, before she even graduated high school, she always had the goal to go to college and go to law school, and she also wants to be a professor, and so she's very goal oriented. So I really like that she had a good head on her shoulders. She has a big heart. She's very loving, very thoughtful, and that's another thing that drew me to her, is that we're both wanting to help people. There's ways and things she thinks of about helping people that sometimes don't even cross my mind, and I just have to appreciate her own perspective and things that she sees and how to help people. Because I have my own thing have my own way that I see helping people, and so she definitely encourages and supports that, but she also has her own unique way of doing that too, and we both of us doing that together. It's just a beautiful thing. We both love to help other people, so we have future goals of having workshops, and having ways to support kids that want to go to college. And I look at people like myself who maybe didn't make the best grades. They're good grades, but maybe not stellar, knock on your door, here's a scholarship type grade. But I definitely want to help people that want to pursue and advance their education. And then for her, she wants to definitely help prepare people, because college is something that it can definitely help in your career and just in life. And so there's that that we want to accomplish together. So those are a couple of qualities. There's so many more, but yeah.
Sounds amazing. Sounds amazing. We got to figure out a time for you guys to, once you pass your exam, and is her bar coming soon, or is it in the next few months as well? Or
Yeah, it's coming pretty soon.
Yeah. Once you guys ace those, we need to get you guys over to Carlsbad to hang out, have a weekend of rest and recovery and celebration.
Definitely.
Gonna figure that out. Yeah, man. Oh, so good. Let's yeah. Okay. So humans on the journey. So we're all kind of walking on the journey. and we are constantly, going in and out of each other's lives. Who are a
Mhm.
couple of your, people from childhood, from more recent times? I know you talked about this, Miles Monroe. Are there any other, like, just people who have been key in your own development, your own awakening, your own just, current awakening, that you're especially appreciative of? And obviously we've just heard you talk about your fiance, which sounds like she's like super incredible and has been one of those people. But yeah, anybody that comes to mind?
I would say overall in life, not just recently, but I put you on that list. Meeting you in high school, and you weren't your average high school teacher. I remember there's times where we would just kind of, we do like these activities where we're just kind of like standing across from each other and we're like looking at each other's eyes, and where there's like different like communication activities, and we work on listening to others, we work on communication, and just getting past those surface level, um, barriers or, shields that people may have up. This is high school. Everyone's, going through puberty, and they're trying to come into their own self. And, here you are, you're like the voice of reason, and, trying to get people to, or students to kind of like see like a different perspective of how they should be conducting themselves and interacting. Um, One of the things that I really took to home was just like being aware and having that awareness. Really, that was something that you would often say, and just like being in the moment. And so, never really heard those things before until I met you. And so, just and you're always about like, okay, let's be in the moment. How can you be like intentional and being aware of your surroundings, and just you being the person that you are. Like, I feel like you weren't just like a teacher; you're a friend. While we're going to school. So I thought that was a very cool dynamic that we're able to have in school. And um, yeah,
Hmm.
the way that you were able to get along with everyone, and everyone respected you. And yeah, it was just like I never seen a teacher have that kind of command and respect, and just that those like having those good vibes. Because sometimes teachers are humans too. They have their own personal life and everything. Like I've had my share of like teachers having like meltdowns and breakdowns, but you're the way you're able to just like handle yourself and just be you and be genuine and authentic. Like that's definitely something that stuck out to me. So
Hmm.
um, that's something that was very important. I don't really have like a long list of people. So it goes you,
Well,
and
I mean,
then
thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I received that. And I also just like that 4 years at Kellis was very healing for me.
mm,
Yeah, I just remember I mean, y'all were a big part of my healing. The students that walked through my classroom, where it was like, okay,
mm,
just really woke me up in a lot of ways. Like, just woke me up to like what's important, and it was like,
yeah,
like, I'm like hanging out with you right now. I love this, like, this is like gives me life. And I
mm,
think that's why I loved the classroom so much, because it was when all of us really dove in to, like, whether it was a
mm,
circle or whether we were doing the eye to eye. It's like just it's magic, right? I mean, it's like when we were little kids, when we were 5 and 6,
mm,
and we were floating around only thinking about the moment, right? We were not thinking about. So it's such a journey being, growing up and getting older and having visions. Like, because I hear you. I mean, this podcast like came out of, where do I want to be in 10 years? Like, that's where this came out of. I'm
mm,
like, what am I gonna, 10 years from now, what do I want to, what do I want to, what will I have wanted to have created, And it was like, this right here is heaven for me. So thank you for your kind words, man. I appreciate that.
definitely.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's a short list. The other man is my dad, my father. Um, just growing up and having that presence of the father figure that really wants to guide and mentor, coach, instruct, discipline, and just make sure staying on the right path. Um, so just definitely appreciated my father. We didn't always. There's times like during my teenage years where definitely butted some heads, and I was like, man, like this guy. Maybe I'm pretty sure a lot of men can relate to that. Kind of that butting heads moment when you think you're becoming a man and you're thinking you're grown and things like that. And but all that was the way he handled it was the way he handled me was like something I'm like, well, I gotta make sure like when the time comes or if the time comes when I have children, like try to have some of that because if I was like that, I can only imagine. But yeah, I know I was definitely a strong-willed kid, and I tried to be, I was respectful, but I also had a strong will too. So I had to, kind of find that line. And he was able to just, the way he parented and brought me up was, I'm very appreciative of that.
Hmm.
And then nowadays, like I feel like my dad's my best friend.
No joke.
We have like this relationship where I feel like he's my brother, but he's also my father almost like too, just because we were able to just sit down and just talk. And it's that's one of the relationships that I'm super thankful for is just having that relationship with my father, and just seeing how he's able to work past things in his life, then of course pass on those lessons to me, and him just being able to admit like, okay, like in this situation, maybe I could have done this better, and just having that, not being like high-minded to just kind of like admit his faults and admit like when he was wrong or whatever, and just here's where you should do better, or here's where we should do better, and just being transparent and being honest. So that's been a really good relationship and a really positive thing in my life, and just seeing how he's going through things in his life spiritually and naturally and personally, and how he just has like that confidence and the boldness to move forward with different things in life. It's definitely encouraging for me. So, yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And
Yeah, I love that you literally he's like a father and like a brother, and I think that's so cool. I mean,
I definitely give him.
yeah, he's a
I
special
definitely
dude.
give him his. Sorry, I don't mean to
No, go ahead,
walk over
say it.
you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely want to give him his flowers, just because he didn't have his own biological father in his life, so he never had that type of relationship shown to him. And so I definitely give him his props and his flowers because, even though he didn't like receive that himself, he was able to give, me and my siblings that. So, I just, I always tip my hat off to my father, show him like the utmost respect.
Wow. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, I mean, he can be incredibly proud. That's for sure of who you and I haven't connected with your sister in a while, but I also really appreciated her at school too. It's like anyway, yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing those. Okay, so I do want to transition into. I've got just two more kind of questions. First one is, it is an interesting time to be alive. With COVID reality and everybody working on masks and new how washing our hands again after taking way too long off, and maybe even I also was thinking about how I feel like a lot of folks. Well, I think we're just being more mindful. Maybe we're being more mindful of like our wellness, right? Like just okay, I'm kind of not feeling well. Maybe I shouldn't go out and like pass that on to 14 people. Um,
Hmm.
but it's a lot of this, right? There's a lot of this going on with regard to our situation, because we've got the economy. Anyway, that whole reality. We also in this last month have been really ignited as a nation and also in the world, by honestly by like the death, the killing of like George Floyd in Minnesota, and has woken a lot of us up to some systemic racism within our country, and lots of different, just different systems of our country that are broken and that are in need of solutions and need of fixing. Yeah. And so I feel like there's a big awakening going on in our country and our world of like, all right, how are we going to do family? How are we going to do human family again? And it's,
Mm,
and it's like, we've got to return to that. And obviously
mm,
there's extreme ends, right? There's extreme ends that are, having an interesting time, like, really struggling with all that's going on. But for the most part, I feel like a lot of us are kind of really awakening to like the need for legitimate equality, like not just. So anyway, as you're processing, as you're, I'm a privileged white dude living in California, that is become ever more aware of my privilege, just based on, being in this country. I guess I'd just be curious to know what's been coming up for you. I know we talked about it here in the last week or so, and you just said lots. It's like there's so many different reflections, and we said we could probably spend 12 hours chatting.
mm.
But what are some of the reflections that are coming up for you? What are you feeling? Where are you feeling called right now? Obviously you've got your own, your passions for health, your passions for nutrition, your passions for educating people, teaching people, empowering people, encouraging people. As this Black Lives Matter movement continues to grow, and I pray grows and grows, and really heals this ridiculousness in our country and around the world. Like what's coming up for you?
Yeah, that's definitely a lot. And I wasn't able to put my finger down on just one thing, so I'll just kind of say what's on my mind now.
Yeah.
But there's the I guess I look at things from a spiritual perspective, and just because I am a man of faith and I do believe in the Most High, and I do believe, what was written in the Bible, and so there's different things that were spoken, and like you said, like we're seeing not just in our country, but we're also seeing around the world. Now, I've only been living for 29 years. I've never seen anything like that. I'm not sure if that's the same for you in your lifetime, but I've never seen anything like this. And I know I talked to my dad, and he's like, yeah, like definitely haven't seen anything like this in my lifetime as far as all the things that are going on, not just that one topic, but just everything in general. There's so much going on. So, people are what they eat, and that's something that's not just on the natural health base, but it's also in a person or like in the spiritual aspect. What people consume spiritually, it feeds into how they manifest and kind of act out in life. So if you're putting like hatred and you're feeding on hatred, you can expect that as a spirit or as a person or a spirit within a person that's acting out, you're going to put out hate. And if you're consuming love as a spirit, as a person, you'll put out love because that's what you're putting in yourself. And so in today's world, we're seeing, those play out. And you have your spectrum, of course, but I feel like the timing of it, I feel like that's not coincidence. I feel like that is on purpose, and a part of, my spiritual belief, and part of my recent spiritual awakening is like realizing like my identity. I'm not just like me personally. I'm not just, a descendant of slaves. After reading the Bible and just removing certain perspectives and just like looking at it and looking at what's happened in world history, it leads me to believe that the people of the book are the people that have been scattered around the world, which are, people, of African descent. And so they have been shipped and scattered across the world. And there's prophecy that says that, there's going to be a 400-year time mark. And, last year would mark that 400 years, that the first, slaves were brought over into the Americas. And so I don't see it as like too much a coincidence that we're seeing, after that mark, especially into this new calendar year, that things are beginning to be shaken up. People are beginning to wake up. And it's not just here and there. It seems like there's like a gradient of people waking up, and there's people that don't want to realize the truth or realize that, there's like that hate that's going on. And then there's people that realize like, well, there definitely can be more love. How can I be a part of healing? And so it's a big system. It's a big beast, so to speak, that we're attempting to tackle and take down. And I believe that if we're doing what we feel is right in our hearts, let's do that. Like if you feel that there's a certain thing you can do to help, let's definitely do that out of love, and let's, do those things. So those all those actions, even though they may not seem grand, they do have an impact, and it's you saying something with your actions. So definitely don't feel defeated or that this is too big of a problem to tackle alone. Just, put in your actions where you can, and that'll be your voice speaking for your, for your actions. So, yeah, it's an interesting time, and like I said, there's a gradient of people waking up, and there's people that realize like, yeah, like there's this, there's people that are being, targeted. There's people that are being, not being recognized as human. There's a whole like spectrum. And so I believe to overcome that, my belief is that this will be overcome spiritually. And so we just have to wake up and recognize that God will be the one to, deliver and save us. We just have to wake up and acknowledge that He's the going to be the one that's going to get us out of this. So there is a path, there is a way that we come before God. And those are things that I'm working on within myself, because you have to get yourself right spiritually, get yourself right personally, and put yourself in a position to where God can act and move. And for those that are it's pretty black and white. It's like right down the middle. If you're gonna be on the love side, you're gonna do the love. If you're gonna be on the hate side, there's gonna be that too. So like God, He'll be able to see into everyone's heart and know what their intentions are at the end of the day. And so for me, just trying to do things to help everyone, not just one particular person or people group, but like you're saying, like becoming that human family, because originally that's what God created. Like we're all one human race. We're all supposed to, be brothers and sisters on this planet. This whole like race thing, that's kind of been a thing that's, been man-made and to separate instead of unite. And so by removing those barriers and taking down all those man-made things and just getting back to like, getting back to the garden, getting back to like the original plan for things, and just, living how, God originally designed it, I feel like that's a part of that process. So like getting back to the foundation, like you said, like returning to that human family.
Thanks for sharing. Appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Yeah, just helpful to hear your reflections and how your process and everything. And I like your, even just the piece on just what we're feeding ourselves, right? What we're, this love, like feeding ourselves love or hatred. And I mean, Sarah and I feel like we've been commenting for years on just the advertisements, like YouTube pop-ups or whatever, where you're like, they're advertising the next great movies coming out, and like they're just they continue to be more and more like fear-based, like more and more just like ugliness coming at us. It's like, holy moly, could we maybe cry and hold hands during the next movie, like instead of always be in this like frayed state. So anyway, so I appreciate that I mean, it's what we consume. It's like it applies to nutrition, but it also applies to what we're feeding our spirits day in and day out. And the more we're feeding ourselves junk,
Mm.
the more we're gonna, live in greed and live in, segregation and live in division and live in, right? Like separate.
Yeah.
Whereas if we are feeding ourselves love, and for you, that's highly incorporated in with your faith journey and your walk with God. It's like that is a shifter for you, where it's like
Mm.
so critical as you're feeding yourself with love, and then just feeling inspired to one day at a time, just like show up and be that messenger of like, hey, we're together, we're in this together, instead
Mhm.
of the division, instead of that like energy
Mm.
of like hatred, which may never go away. But man, I think I kind of think that there's so many more kind people in our world than folks that are just so hurt and so
Mhm.
dark inside. I really feel like most of us want to be this one family. Like if we really sat
Mm.
down and thought about it for,
Yeah.
yet for some reason for some reason money and greed and right and wrong has just caused this for eons.
Mm.
So my prayer is that it shifts, that this is part of that shift, and all right, family, here we come.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for sharing. Okay, so, and again, we could talk for 12 hours on that. Let's have another chat here soon. Even if it's not an interview, we'll just drop in and I'd love to dive in more. Final question. You've got a room full of 20,000, 30,000 people. They're like, they've been following you for some years, and they're like, okay, we're ready for the wisdom drops from Caleb. What, if you got a room full, what do you get excited about sharing with people? What do you want people to consider? What do you want people to take a look at in their lives? What do you what might you offer?
Yeah. So first, I just want to thank all the 20,000 people still sticking around. That they haven't walked out to the parking lot yet. So, but on a serious note, I would say it's important for you to plug into the source as a person. For me, that was, plugging into the Most High. I was plugging into God. And I realized that the times when I'm plugged into the source, I'm able to enhance that growth and spark that growth. And I feel that is showing that positive potential for being the best version of myself. Whereas the times where I'm not plugged into the source, that's when I'm not experiencing growth. There's, like a decaying, or there's like a stunting of growth. There's definitely like a withering going on. And so if I could say one thing to everyone, is just, plug into the source. Like seeds, they need soil. Fish, they need water. We need air and food. That's just on the natural sense, but as a person in the spiritual level, definitely need to plug into like whatever your source is. I know that people listening may come from all different walks of life. We may not always agree on every topic, but if there's like a wisdom to share that could apply to everyone, it would be plug into your source, because without it, you won't be able to function. If you look at like your appliances around the house, everyone has, TV and a blender or, other things. All those things are cool, but you don't have the power to, get those things functioning, at the end of the day, they're just kind of there. They're just inanimate objects. And it's the same thing for us as humans. If we're not plugged into that source, we aren't going to function properly. And with my believing that God has purpose and designed each of us to do a specific task on this earth, if we're not plugged into Him, we're not going to be able to function or do things good. And that's what the definition of good is, in a biblical sense. Good means functional, and evil is dysfunctional. So if you're not plugging into your source, you only have one other thing that you can do, and that's dysfunction. So that would be the one piece of advice I'd share with everyone.
Yeah, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. Oh, I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful for your willingness to hop on this interview and to share a bit of your journey up till now. And yeah, dude, I'm just really proud of you. Proud of who you've become. I mean, who you were at 18. I also loved that guy too, but it's really cool to watch you just continue to step into your power and into your greatness. And yeah, I'm taking a lot away from this interview and just listening to you, and just that faithfulness, that day to day, like, okay, and the fact that you were talking about like journal, like kind of you're writing down and the different exercises you're doing. I mean, that's so powerful. And really just hearing you talk through that also is like, I think sometimes I make up in my brain that I've got too much on my list for the day, and and yet anytime I take the time to sit down with the text, to sit down, like with a book, or take 15 minutes listening to a book that I'm, one of these books that my therapist has, recommended, or it's like just it just helps me so much. Then just show up. I mean, it's what you just described, the whole plugging into the source. When you plug into God, to plug into love, obviously everybody's got their own story with that, but plugging in, it changes my game. It changes my day. Changes how it changes how I eat, changes how I treat my wife, changes how I listen versus, it changes my tone of voice. I mean, it just changes so much. So yeah, I really appreciate all the nuggets you've shared throughout this interview. And yeah, I'm really hopeful that people will hop on and hear this and just be reminded that they have it in them, that they've got big purpose in them. I've heard you talk about that quite a bit throughout. I've heard you talk about, just clarity of vision. I think you've talked a lot about that being so key in your healing journey, your growth journey. So just fun to, I think that's a call to all of us to just continue to get clear and to, and vision. Anyway, yeah, I'm really proud of you and thankful for you taking the time. Anything else you want to add before I close this out here? But I'm just really, really appreciative.
Yeah, I just want to say super appreciative of your friendship. Over those, last 10 years, you've been reaching out, checking in on me, and you didn't have to do that. So definitely appreciate, you sending all the good vibes and love, and, keeping me up to date with where you are in life and what you're working towards. And it was definitely during those periods that I explained earlier where I was kind of like up and down. And so even throughout those times, you're still engaging me. And at a certain point, I probably didn't respond as often or maybe in a timely manner, but you still you're consistent. You kept it up on your end. And that's something that, I try to preach and practice as well, is communication, two-way street, takes both ends. Just because, there's the other person, then they're not responding, you can't control what they do. You can only control what you do. And so I just want to, also compliment you on just, being consistent and just always showing that love and always engaging me. So definitely appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, dude. My pleasure. I mean, I'm really excited to see where we're at 10 years from now. You know what I'm saying? Like let's keep connected. And yeah, I think we're gonna be working together in many different facets in the coming years. You know, you guys are just like when you're talking about you and your wife and workshops and this and that. I'm like, anyway, I get excited about what's possible, what can be, yeah. Anyway, thank you. And those of you who hopped on YouTube or listened to our podcast today, really grateful to have you join episode 11 of Our Healing Voices with Caleb Wilson. Again, reach out to him. We'll make sure we have his information both in the podcast description and also on the YouTube description. So connect with him. Those of you who would like more guidance on the nutrition front, on if you've got some wellness goals, no doubt in my mind that this guy can help you move in the direction of where you want to go. So anyway, thanks again, Caleb. Thank you all for joining us, and signing off.